There we go. Ready? All right. We'll call the meeting to order. If you don't mind, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Lord, we just thank you so much for this country, this great country that we live in, and for the wonderful things that it gives us as far as participating in our local government. We just ask that you guide us, direct us, give us wisdom and discernment. Let your will be done. Christ, let me pray, amen. Mac, are you going to go through the announcements? Well, the first thing we need to do, I guess, is approve the minutes from the last meeting. Did I get a chance to go through them?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
A motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're good. Okay. Mac?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Good evening. Matt Carpenter for the Planning Department, CARPENTER. The first quasi-judicial item we have for you is agenda item number 2, and it's a request to table this particular item.
Okay, any questions? We have a motion?
Move to table.
We have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Mac.
Thank you, Commissioners. These are all quasi-judicial.
Anyone wishing to speak on items 3 and 4, the Staybridge Suites and Townplace Suites, please stand and be sworn at this time. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do hereby solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony I present will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The audience and staff are sworn.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Agenda item number 3, Staybridge Suites. This is a request to approve by final order. It's a major development reviewed by Tim Brown. I'm going to ask Tim to briefly introduce this one for you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Tim Brown with Planning and Development. This is a major development order application submitted by Jenkins Engineering on behalf of Destin Sandestin Hospitality LLC, requesting approval to develop a 116-unit hotel with pool amenity and associated infrastructure on 2.39 acres with a future land use of mixed use and a zoning of coastal center mixed use. Located in District 4 at the northeast corner of Ponce de Leon and US Highway 98, just in front of the Blake at Miramar Beach. This went to the Design Review Board last Thursday. They approved it by a vote of 5-0 with conditions concerning color, tile, and signage. And with that, I'd like to enter the staff report into the record. I'll entertain any questions the board may have, and I'll turn it over to the applicant.
Okay, any questions for staff?
Were there any buyouts?
No, there's no buyouts. I do believe they have proportionate fair share, though. I'd have to double check that.
I think they do. I think both of these
They do,
can-
Tim.
That's, yeah, it's not a buyout.
Okay. Thanks, Tim.
Evening, Commissioners. Jamie Eubanks, EUBANKS with Jenkins Engineering. As Tim said, last week we went before the Design Review Board. We're approved there. This particular parcel, I think a few of you may have been on here a couple years back when the parent parcel came through, which is the Blake Assisted Living Facility. This is actually the out parcel in the front. It was a bit of a joint master plan, master stormwater, master system overall, and this is the conclusion of that particular piece of property. So with that said, I'll just be happy to take any questions if you have any.
Any questions? No questions, all right. Okay. we'll open it up to public comments. Anyone in the audience like to speak on this? Seeing none. All right, we'll close public comments and commissioners. What are your wishes?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I have a feeling there might be some opposition to the next one.
Oh, maybe not. One thing has been before us before.
Do what?
I remember this one.
Yeah.
They may be, who knows?
Thank you, Commissioners. The next item for your consideration today is agenda item number 4. This is the Townplace Suites. This is a major development reviewed by Tim Brown. I think y'all may have heard this one briefly before. I'll ask Tim to briefly introduce it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. This was previously brought before you. This is a major development order application submitted by Baskerville Donovan on behalf of Banyan Investment Group requesting approval to construct a 100-unit hotel with pool amenity and associated infrastructure on 1.53 acres with a future land of mixed use and a zoning of coastal center. It's located in District 5 on Scenic Gulf Drive. It's an existing Quality Inn that they're going to tear down and rebuild as a Townplace Suites. Since the last meeting, they've moved the dumpster from the east side to the west, from the west side to the east side. They've relabeled, apparently it was never going to be a bar. It's a market, and a lot of hotels have markets. Between the market and the buffet area, which is strictly for hotel guests, you can't just come in off the street and eat there, it's less than 800 square feet. So planning considers that to be ancillary space that does not require any additional parking. So since the last meeting, those are the major changes. With that, I'd like to enter the staff report into the record. I'll entertain any questions, and I'll turn it over to the applicant.
Questions for staff?
I remember that when this came up before, I was trying to do some homework on it, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the original application was for 91 units, and then it ended up somehow being 100 units. And I don't know if that was an error or an oversight, but does anybody else remember that?
Yeah, I think I brought that up at the last meeting, the last time we talked about this, and it was the Zoning Board of Adjustments had a hearing on 2 variances that were requested, and the minutes of the meeting are not correct. The final order that came out of it is not correct. It's not consistent with the vote that was taken at the Zoning Board of Adjustments meeting. And what they approved was a 91-room hotel with 91 parking spaces. So I get, I'd like to know if anybody from planning since that last meeting has taken a look at that video to see if what I saw is correct or not.
I don't think so. The information I have from that meeting is it was a variance to go from 1.1 spaces per room to 1 space per room.
Yes, I understand. That's what the final order said coming out of the Zoning Board of Adjustments. But I believe that's an error. And if that's an error, I think it's an incumbent on the county to get that corrected. And I think there's a mechanism for doing that, right? Mr. Atkinson?
There is, but it's not at this level. Unfortunately, our hands are tied by the final order entered by the Zoning Board of Adjustment. We do not sit in appellate capacity over them or in review capacity over them. So certainly if there is an issue, any interested party or affected party by that order could bring to the zoning board's attention and their attorney that they believe there was an error in that order. If there in fact was an error that was just an inadvertent typo or an inaccurate statement, to the extent of a scrivener's error, that'd just be corrected through an amended order. But however, the board would it'd have to be addressed at their level. And until they do address it or take it up, that order is final and binding from that. Obviously, we discussed, I think, at great length the first time this came up. We do occasionally run into these unique circumstances where a ZBA order comes before we come in, and we have had this once or twice, I know even since I've sat here, where we deal with a ZBA order that may affect someone's entitlements. We may not agree with where we would go from the development order aspect at this level, or the board may not want to, but if it's already been adjudicated at their board, that's not really part of your consideration anymore about whether that was proper. But that's just an order of operations and sequencing issue.
Yeah, so I'm sorry. So I guess the question is the county not an interested party? The county could take it to the circuit court, could they not, and get that final order amended?
If county staff wish to appeal that order, I believe it's well past that. That's been quite some time ago. And it would not go to the circuit court. I mean, time for appeal is well past. When was that order issued, Mr. Carter?
2020.
I
March?
can't remember
March of
exactly.
2020, is it?
But
September 20?
I would like to make one point.
It was well outside of 30 days.
Board of Adjustment was not approving a conditional use for a certain number of units. They were asked to consider a variance from a particular development standard. But they were not asked to decide whether or not it's going to be 91 units or 100 units. They were asked, can we deviate from the 1.1 spaces per hotel room?
Yeah, and
That's what was advertised, that was what was applied for, and that was what was granted.
And they wanted, they asked for 0.9, so the zoning board of adjustments agreed to give them 1-to-1, but that was on the condition that the parking would be limited to 91 spaces with 91 rooms. That was conditional on, if you go back, look at the video, that was what was requested. That was, I'm sorry, that's what was voted on. And I know there was a lot of confusion there about who said what, but it's pretty clear to me anyway, and nobody else here has looked at it, I guess, but it's very clear. As a matter of fact, the chairman made a comment to the applicant at that time, so at least you got, 91 rooms, along with everything else. So I think it was clear to them. It's clear to me that that is what they intended to approve. And parking is the big issue in this project too. I mean, I'm sure you're going to hear more about that here today. That is the central issue, I think. It's something that should be taken into consideration, I believe.
Thank you, sir. I would tend to disagree that parking was the ruse of the issue at the last meeting.
Well,
The issue is where the pool was where the dumpster was gonna be, adjacent to an adjacent owner's pool. That was who was here objecting last time. That's who brought up the issue about parking. That's who brought up the issue about the internal components of the hotel.
Right, I
That is the
remember,
only reason that came up.
and council advised us that we couldn't, since they had passed at the zoning board, the one-to-one, that we couldn't do anything about that.
That is correct. That's not before the planning board.
Just wanted to offer that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
In layman terms, could you just kind of explain how the petition started off requesting 91 units and then it ends up being 100 units? Is that?
Going back in time, I haven't reviewed those, but people can amend them. I mean, they can amend their application.
Okay.
I mean, we frequently start out at a much larger project than we wind up with. But it's not approved until this major development gets approved, so. And
So as it stands right now, it's 100 units.
that is what this application
And then-
says today.
And we've got 100 parking spots.
I believe that's correct.
And then we talked about before, housekeeping, maintenance, deliveries, all these things that
Yes, sir.
this is just a density, a traffic, a parking problem, and the businesses that are surrounding this, the employees are going to end up parking at Wendy's or Chick-fil-A or other places of business when really and truly this should be designed to accommodate not just customers, but staff as well.
Yes, sir. And the Institute of Traffic Engineers, the manual that we use, the standards that are incorporated into our land development code, they all come from a number of studies done by this institute. That's the standards we use when we do analysis for traffic. Those are the standards we use when we do analysis for parking. And with regard to a hotel in the 1.1, those things you're describing have already been considered and are accommodated in that standard.
When they first requested a variance on the number of parking places, correct me if I'm wrong, but weren't you adamantly against that?
I don't really recall, given how long ago it's been and how many projects we have, but they applied for a variance to that.
Yeah, I don't
The
think it
zoning
matters
board of
at this
adjustment
point.
approved it, and once they do that, it's a done deal.
Yeah, we can't do
Parking
anything
is
about
over.
that. That's what council told us last time. We went through all this the last time, if you remember.
I mean,
The
even
same
if-
questions came up, and he said, you can't do anything about that. It went through the zoning board of adjustments. They voted on the 1-to-1, and we're bound by that.
Yeah, even if I don't like it,
Yeah.
that's not my privilege to assert my own personal opinion about that. That board issued a final order, and we have to live with it, whatever that is. At least from staff's perspective.
And councils.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
Yeah, just one other question. I think Mr. Brown said something about controlling access to the commercial parts of the development. Is somebody going to talk about how they're going to control that?
Controlling access to the internal
Yeah, so
components of the hotel?
Yeah, so it
I'm
was
sure
all-
the applicants can speak to their method of operation, yes.
What I heard him say is they were only available to people that were staying at the hotel, not available to people from outside.
We believe that the scale of the internal components of that is
Mhm.
not such that it would attract traffic from outside the development. That's
Okay.
what he said.
Okay.
yes, sir.
My name is Will Dunaway, of the law firm Clark Partington. I'm representing the applicant Banyan here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Board, for the continuance that you granted in August so that we had an opportunity to go back and look at this project and address some of the issues that were brought up and that you rightly have brought up. I do want to point out, as we stand before you today, just as your counsel has said, this is a quasi-judicial hearing. You are acting as the judge in this regard, and we are presenting the evidence. We, meaning staff and the applicant and anyone else who presents evidence before you. Any evidence that you may have gotten from your own activity or own investigation, of course, should not be brought in. That would be ex parte information, and that would need to be disclosed to your counsel, and then that would be moved forward. So what we have before you, the evidence, and I believe it's just to confirm, the staff report has been accepted into evidence, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
And in the staff report, and as both Tim and Mac have indicated, your staff report has a very detailed review of the project and the approvals. It is for a 100-room limited hotel, and it has, you'll see on page 3, correction, 1, 2, 3, 4, on page 4, you'll see the reviewer's summary, and you will see that 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. That 20 spots all have reviewed it and all have marked that the application complies with the technical requirements of the Land Development Code. Now, with regards to the variance, and that's come up, I want to have an opportunity for each of you to have a copy of the final order granting the variance. And with your permission, Mr. Chairman, I have copies for everyone. Thank you. So as both Clay, your counsel, and as Mac has indicated, is the planning director. And it is important to note that the planning director under your land development code is the interpreter of your land development, of the land development code. And he has indicated the information that he has provided, and that is of evidence and before you. Now, as Mac said, some things change during application processes. What was granted in this final order granting the variance was simply the 1-to-1 ratio. The 1-to-1 parking ratio, which is one parking space for one room. It's a 100-room facility. It has 100 parking spaces. So parking is satisfied. That has been met. It's part of the review. All of the other review portions have also been complied with. It, in all aspects, meets the technical requirements for approval. We have here today the engineer who spoke with you in August, Michael Langston from Baskerville Donovan. We also have the owner. Also, as I think Mac correctly pointed out to you, again, during this interim time period that you gave us, and again, we thank you for that, we had opportunity to work with the adjacent landowner, and we, as Tim said, the location of the dumpster has been moved, and we invite, in fact, we would ask that you would condition the approval on it remaining in the location that it's there, so that everyone is clear that the dumpster doesn't move again. Again, just so you know, we moved it only because there was some information at the lower technical review that thought it would be a better place. Nevertheless, it's back where it's been for about 25 years, and that's where we intend for it to remain. So the engineer is here if you have questions for him. Otherwise, the evidence has been submitted to you. It meets the technical requirements, and we would ask for your approval of this project.
Thank you, sir. Y'all, any questions?
It's not going to be uncommon during peak season to have all 100 rooms rented. I'm just wondering where the staff is going to park.
I agree with you, but once again, various.
So where is the staff going to park? Are they just going to park in like fast food places or other businesses around and just?
Again, and I think Mac is the best person to address this, but the parking ratios are developed from the institution that tracks this, and those ratios are built upon industry standards and what is in effect, and it accounts for it. So that is out there now. You heard, and we would say again, you can't park, you can't get a parking pass unless you're getting a room, right? So unless you have a room, you get a parking pass. So you can't just be off of the street, i.e. the public, and come in and park in this area.
I'm talking about the staff.
That's right. The operator has very much experience in handling his staff and knowing how they get to work, and he has an obligation to make sure that he can rent the maximum number of rooms, i.e. they have places to park. So that is part of the operations of that facility. So that is taken into account in the operational portion of the project.
So you got all 100 rooms rented.
If you do.
During peak season, that's not going to be uncommon. Where do your staff park if all rooms are rented and all the parking places are full?
Industry.
Okay.
Industry, no, it's important because it's a valid point. What we know from operating these facilities is that 100% room rental does not equal 100% of parking. That's just known. People show up in different ways than with a car. So that's just known.
Do you happen to know if these parking places are standard parking places or if they're all compact vehicle parking places?
We know that the number of compact parking spots meets the code. There are a number of them that are compact parking spots. They fully comply with your existing code, as does the number of handicap parking spaces. All of those meet your code as it is written, and that has been certified by the planning director.
If we could apply a little bit of common sense here, who vacations in a compact car? They all come down here in SUVs. And this may be according to the code, land development and stuff like this, but what we're really doing is increasing the problems that are already existing down there with density and parking and traffic. And just from a common sense approach, these industry standards that strike a layman as having a very low bar and presents a
I agree with you,
situation.
Dan, but, and I understand there's some issues. and
They're
we could go through all-
exasperating a problem that we've already got. They're not helping the situation. The problem's getting worse with developments like this.
Well, once again, our attorney has told us that we can't address that issue because it's already been handled at the ZBA board. And once they got that done and voted on that, it's out of our hands. This is what we talked about last time, so there's no sense in us just rehashing it again because it's not doing us any good.
Sure not helping the people on the south end.
But you can go talk to ZBA about that because they're the ones that voted for it. Any other questions for the applicant? All right, we'll open it up to public comments. Anyone in the audience like to speak on this? Yes, sir.
Sorry, I didn't prepare because I just received the notice about an hour ago. I'm the manager of the owner of the property to the west. Parking has been a nightmare. I have had many times that the existing 65 or whatever units have always parked in my back parking lot. Always. And that was not even in the peak season. Also, what happens is that the people just decide that they can't go anywhere else. They're going to go to the least path of resistance. We have an office that's approximately almost 5,000 square feet. And the people coming there, they're parking there, they're leaving trash. We've talked to the manager or whatever it is. So my concern is parking. But what I heard here, and I'm not that familiar, a variance is something that is above the norm. So you're asking for an exception. Why in the world, when we have 65 or 66 units, that there's an issue with parking, you would grant more or less parking? And the other issue is my parking lot sits about approximately 5 feet, 4 feet lower. And I want to make sure that the drainage, they talked about all the 85% of impervious, and they talk about the drains that are on, there's a couple drains on my side, which is the west side. If they get clogged, I don't know how big they are, then is there a backup? If they get clogged, my drain will get overwhelmed, and my back doors, which I have 2 of them, is only about maybe 8 inches at the most, and it'll come into my building.
Has that been an issue so far? I mean, has it happened?
There has been an issue, yes, that it got overwhelmed, and there's a big pond in the back of our parking lot. We have 2 drains, and we've had to have it worked on because all the debris, because there is no fence, and they said something about a fence. There's no fence, so everybody throws trash, and we're constantly dealing with that. But it's the people parking there. And I can attest, because I just moved here, this is my 33rd day full-time, but I've owned that office building for many years. And when I come down, which is maybe once every maybe 10 weeks, 12 weeks, I personally have had to go over and about parking and things of that nature. And I don't feel I don't want to stop the development, but going from 65 to 100, we've already has issues, and then you are allowing, instead of the lower amount, a variance. Now, if they made a mistake, because I just received this certified, it took almost 2 weeks for me to get it because it went up north, because I still have offices up there. Is there anything I can do to go after, to appeal to the board to say, it's been an ongoing issue, and now you're going to make it worse
You're talking about on the parking?
on the park?
There's nothing that we can do at this
No,
level.
no. Is there anything I can do to appeal?
You can ask our counsel.
I don't give legal advice to the general public on these matters. The simple fact the order's been entered well over 30 days. But that'd be a question for private counsel if you want to look at pursuing anything and if you believe there's a basis to do so.
And we'll have the applicant answer your other questions about the drainage and fencing and stuff like that. We'll have them come back up when we close public comments and answer your questions on that.
Rick Michalowski, Michalowski, and it's Diversified. I'm the manager of Diversified Holdings of Florida.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Chairman, I'd just like to make one clarification.
Yes, sir.
The effect of the variance that they were granted removes one parking space.
Okay,
That's the effect of the variance, one parking space.
okay. Anybody else in the audience want to speak on this? All right, seeing none, we'll close public comments. Yes, sir, would you mind addressing some of his concerns?
Yes, sir. Mike Langston with Baskerville Donovan. I'm the agent for owner for this particular project and the project manager for the project also. I have Jason Frick with me. He's the engineer of record, and I'm an engineer also. With regard to the drainage, we have designed an underground exfiltration system that far exceeds the requirements of standard practice. It's for a 100-year retention with multiple inlets throughout the system. We provide access points for maintenance and cleaning of those facilities. And it will overflow out into the street. It's a curb and gutter system, so we'd have to flood the entire parking lot before it can get out to reach the property to the west. Also, in regards to access to that property to the west, which we just heard about, we are installing a fence or a wall along that perimeter. There's no access right there by his property. There's no way for you to get around it except maybe through the right-of-way, I guess. You could use the sidewalk out there.
Walk all the way around?
Yes, sir. You have to walk all the way around to get there. We have a very nice fence. It's structured to look nice. It's got landscaping on both sides of it. That was part of the development review process we had previously.
You're saying you're improving the existing drainage as it is now?
Yes, sir, we are. The drainage that was there now was built back in 25 years ago, really before you had the type of stormwater rules that are in place today. So we have 100% retention, and there's going to be very large pipes under the ground, under the parking, throughout the whole system, throughout the whole parking area. Underneath the ground, there's large pipes that are holding the water. If it ever overflows, it overflows out to the right-of-way.
And you said you're doing it to the 100-year?
100-year attenuation, yes, sir, because it's zero discharge.
Right. All right. Hopefully that answered his question, so. Anyway, sorry we've closed public comments now, but any other questions for?
I've got a question. Hotel population, your mix of guests, how many come in? Don't drive?
Yes, sir, that was an issue that we had talked about before, where under this type of hotel, which is a limited lodging hotel, that families come in, they come in one car sometimes, they share, they use Ubers. There's other ways that you can mitigate the parking. Those ratios that were established were based on average rates for hotels throughout the nation through the Institute of Transportation Engineers. So the ratios accounted for maintenance staff, staff that works the front desk, all those are included in those ratios. So it's very, I think the owner would be, the operator of the hotel would be very pleased if all of his hotels rooms were rented at one time. But the fact is, the ratio of 1-to-1 or it would include the service people that work in the hotel.
I'm just asking, I mean, not, is this going to be this person's hotel?
No, sir. This is more of a family-oriented facility.
Family just to come for vacation?
Yes, sir.
Thanks, sir. All right, Commissioners, we've closed public comment, so what are your wishes?
I'm going to make some comments, and I realize it's going to be futile, but we live here. We listen to the citizens and the business people every day talking about the density and the congestion and how gridlocked it is in this area. And then we've got projects coming in that are doing nothing but exasperating an already critical problem. And if our land development code allows that, well, then our land development code needs to be readdressed because we're not doing anything to help the problem.
But that's at the commission level,
That's at the commission level.
county commission, yeah. So until then, we're supposed to abide by the land development code and the comp plan.
Okay.
And we can't tell people they can't develop their property.
You know, at this level, this is a suggestion. Once it gets to the BCC, that's where the rubber meets the road. But I cannot in good conscience approve a project that's just going to make a bad situation worse. And that's my right to do so. So we know how this is going to play out. We've seen this before.
Well, our job is to make sure it meets the land development code and the comp plan.
It would be nice if our land development code was up to speed and did not allow problems to just get worse and worse.
No, you can take it up with your commissioners.
Yeah, the next stop will be on their desk.
Yeah.
How do you know it'll be a problem?
Because there's already a problem. Density,
No, I'm talking about
Traffic, parking.
this specific project. I'm just curious.
the last time we heard this, you were adamantly against it. What's changed?
They've gotten a variance. There's nothing we can do about it.
All right, anybody want to make a motion?
I make a motion, we approve it.
You have a motion. How about a second?
I'll second it.
You have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Thank y'all. Matt, we got a couple of housekeeping issues.
Planning Commission meeting schedule for your consideration.
It basically stays the same as it is with our dates and everything, just to the next year.
And we've done our best to try to anticipate holidays and those kinds of conflicts for your consideration and approval.
Have y'all had a chance to look at it? It's pretty much the same thing we had this year as far as how it lines up, so, and I didn't see any holidays it was gonna conflict with, so thank goodness. Maybe I won't miss the meeting. So we need a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Get it on your calendar.
Yeah, no kidding. I looked at it. I looked at all the dates this time. We have a motion. Do we get a second?
Yeah, Tom seconded.
Tom seconded. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
And we actually have two more items. We have nomination, election of chair and vice chair, and Mr. Hall has a policy that he has prepared at the direction of the Board of County Commissioners.
Okay.
nominate Commissioner Chairman, Chairman Perry to be the chair again next year.
Second.
We have,
Wants it, I'm sorry.
y'all got on that one quick, didn't you?
Favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Pass it. All right, thank y'all. All right, we need a motion on the vice chair. I thought Tom did an
I
excellent job.
nominate
Tom did a
Tom
great job.
Babcock. He
The
did
test,
a
and he
wonderful
passed
job.
it.
That's right.
It was a test.
We'll second that.
Favor aye.
Aye.
Did you get Tom as vice chair? I think, who made the motion? I think Dan made the motion, and,
Okay.
Same second for both motions, Dan.
all right, thank y'all. Mr. Hall?
Mr. Chairman, earlier this year, the Board of County Commissioners made a decision to retain the Zoom policy and allow other deliberative boards to also vote whether or not you wanted to adopt the remote participation system using the Zoom protocol that the board has adopted. They asked me to put together some rules and regulations for the different deliberative boards that would include the Zoom participation rules. What I'm doing tonight is just passing the draft out for all of y'all with a memo on top. We can consider it when we come back to the January meeting. In the meantime, if you'd like me to send you a copy of it in Word so you can mess around with it, I'd be glad to take your input any way you wanted to submit it. But I just need to pass these out tonight, and we'll bring it back around at the January meeting.
I'm fine with a paper copy if anybody needs
hard
it,
copies.
because I can write on that easier than I can do it on a computer.
You can get out the red pen.
Right.
So the cover just describes the board's action.
Thank you, sir.
Why we gotta do it. It's the emergency order. Right. Thank you very much. And we'll talk to you about it in January.
Okay, thank you. Is that it? We have anything else we need to discuss? Mr. Cozen? You gonna make a motion then? We adjourn?
Oh, I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Yeah, thank y'all. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
But that was not what we were doing. He gave first shout since he gave me Christmas cheer. Right.